Awesome. Let's do this, man. So Jesse Roper, what's up? What's going on, man?
Hey. Yeah. Well, just like I said, getting ready for Germany and beyond.
That's cool, man. I'm so excited to talk to you and Germany must be exciting, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all. I've been there once. I was about to say uncharted territory. I've been there once, so I shouldn't say that. But they seem to react pretty good to me when I was over there. I played 4 different gigs, just solo opening for a guy named Dylan LeBlanc, and that was
Nice.
last October. So curious to see, if anybody's coming back to the shows after seeing them, and what kind of reception we get. And yeah, it's how it goes.
I'm sure they'll be back and more, man.
Oh, I
I was
hope you're
checking out
right.
some oh, for sure, for sure. I was checking out some videos, man. You throw down live. I was listening to your songs before and I my first thought immediately was like, man, that guy got a great voice. And then I heard some of the guitar stuff, and I was like, I wonder, is that him or is that? And then I saw the video. I was like, no, that's him. I'm like, man, dude, you're also a good guitar player, man.
Thanks, man. I think I started off as a guitar. Well, I mean, that's an understatement. I was 100% a guitar player. I didn't sing at all to get going. It wasn't until I was like 18 years old. I started playing guitar when I was like 6. And then when I was about 18, I started like wanting to write songs.
Yeah.
So I gave singing a crack, and I was terrible at it. It's taken me a while to like hone the craft a little bit.
I'd say you've honed in on it. I would
I'm
say
trying.
you've figured it out. So yeah, tell me how did it start? I mean, you started playing guitar at 6. How'd that come about?
I was watching my dad and my older brother play all the time. They would oftentimes be like sitting on the porch, and they would play like fiddle tunes, like old timey country stuff. And my brother played banjo, and my dad would play guitar, and they just like pass it back and forth, doing a little picking. And I remember just sitting and watching them and thinking I can do that. And then one day I asked my dad, and yeah, he's like, "Yeah, you want to play guitar?" I was like, "Yeah, you want to play guitar?" So he sat me on his lap, and I think he made the fingerings for a chord, and I strummed it, and I was hooked. Yeah, I was already hooked before I'd even played it. And so, like for the first many years of my life, I just played guitar because I wanted to play guitar. I had no intent to be in a band or like try and do this as a living. That wasn't on my radar for forever. I mean, I joked about it in high school. Yeah, I'm gonna be a rock star, but I never really actually. I was too nervous to do it for anybody, and I
Yeah.
I kind of liked having it all to myself, just having it as like my thing that I could do. I could go home, close the door, play guitar, and go off into space. And yeah, it was pretty valuable. But then I thought, well, maybe I can try and explore with this a little bit more and write a bit, and yeah, to play a gig and see what that feels like. And basically, I got thrown on stage at an open mic. I had my guitar in my truck, and a friend of mine who was there, it was his birthday that night. At least he told me it was. He's like, "Roper, go play at the open mic." I'm like, "No, no, no, I didn't want to do it. I was just too nervous." And he disappeared for a while. And he was like a bit of a shifty guy, and I don't want to use the word criminal, but you know,
Kind of.
in and out of the law. Yeah. He broke into my truck, grabbed my guitar, put it on stage, put my name on the list for people to play next. And the next thing you know, I'm hearing my name. "Oh, we're gonna get Jesse up here." And
Oh
all
no.
the other ones, I'm like, that couldn't be me. And he's like, "I put your name on the list, Ropes, you're playing." I was like, "What? I don't have a guitar." He's like, "No, I broke into your truck, grabbed it. Your guitar is waiting for you on stage." So so I did it. I got up on stage and I played, and I was sweating and shaking and nervous, and lo and behold, I had a really good time. I couldn't tell myself I didn't enjoy it. So it was really after that experience that I was like, okay, well maybe I'll try and do some more open mics and stuff like that. And yeah, that kind of spawned writing tunes, and then the real obsession began, because like writing tunes, uh geez, there's magic in just like going and mindlessly playing. And but then when you get something where you're resonating your lyrics and the way you're singing it with what you're playing, you can play that for other people, and you feel really like connected to it in some way, and then it turns out that maybe they do too, and there's a magic in that, and I got addicted to that magic. That was my next kind of thrill and drug, whatever, and yeah, that just kept me going. That's been it for the rest of the time now.
Man, that's a trip. So you said you started writing songs at 18?
Yeah, it was about then. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was that like? What was that process like? I mean, your first song, like what do you do? You come up with a chorus or a riff, or how's that go?
Different every time. I mean, these days it's like, uh, yeah, it comes from any direction. Back then, though, yeah, well, shortly after I got on stage, I broke my foot real bad at work, and I was off work for a long time. I couldn't stand. I broke a whole pile of bones, and then shortly after that, it healed, or maybe it was before. I don't get my memories jumbled. My appendix blew up, so there was. I
Oh,
I I had to like move back into my parents' house, and my younger brother was still living there, and he was going to school, and he's like, "Well, what if you're going to be around? Why don't you teach me how to play guitar?" And so I was like, "Sure, Joel, I'll show you some stuff." And he caught on so fast. It was almost scary. And I'd spent my whole life to this point learning how to play guitar, and my brother's just like soaring up to my level. And but it was really cool because we started writing songs together, and that's kind of what got me writing. Him and I would just pick a few chords, work out some lyrics. He's a real creative, really creative guy. And I swear he
huh.
could be doing this better than me if it was what he wanted to do. But I don't know. I stuck. Yeah, we had different visions of our futures. And but yeah, like so we had so much fun. I think some of my favorite times writing have, come with my younger brother, and we don't do that anymore. He's got a family and a really full-time job, and he lives that life. But back then, that's what got me going. It was just so much fun. We'd pass lyrics back and forth and different chord changes and stuff like this. Then we jam it and we laugh and have a time, and occasionally perform them for people. Most notably, it's happening today. Actually, this thing. I live in this little community called Machosen Days, or I mean
Yeah.
Machosen,
Got
and
chosen.
today is Machosen Day, and so after this, I'm gonna hop on my bike and ride down there. But um, Joel and I, my younger brother, wrote a bunch of songs and took them to Machosen Day and asked if we could play them because they have local entertainment there. They were like, sure. And so we wrote a bunch of songs about Machosen, and it was one of the funnest writing and then performing live experiences I've still had to this day. So yeah, it was that kind of thing that got me addicted. I just found the joy in it rather than the fear, and just tried to extend myself out there. Here I am going to Germany, and all. It's just been like tons down in America, and yeah, I can't believe it's
Awesome.
still rolling for me.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So from there, with playing with your brother, doing the first live shows and stuff like that, where do you go from there? Do you put together a band, or what happened after that?
Yeah, so when I was 15, I got my first job working at this place called Olympic View Golf Course, and there was a sous chef there who I worked under named Dylan, and his best friend was a guy named Steve who played the drums. And Dylan had said to me, he heard me play guitar one day. I guess I was playing some Jimi Hendrix or something downstairs, and he's like, "Oh, you got to meet my buddy Steve." Well, Steve comes in and plays some golf there. He's an avid golfer, and I meet him, and he's like, "Oh, come over for a jam one of these nights." So I did, and Steve and I got along so good. And he's this big boisterous dude, and he plays thunderous drums. And at the time, I was huge into like Steve Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix and stuff. And so yeah, we got jamming, and we had real chemistry right off the bat. And I hadn't really jammed with too many people, but I jammed with enough to like know where the chemistry was at. I'd only really had it with my brother up to this point, and all of a sudden we were having fun. So then Steve and I kind of worked on some songs together, and we got some gigs, and we had a hard time finding bass players, but eventually we did, and we went out and played a bunch of gigs and did our thing, and that took a few different forms. But geez, how did this really work? Eventually, I don't really know how to explain this short form. I ended up going to Ontario to like live the music dream. I figured like Toronto in Canada, that's the biggest metropolis. That must be where I need to go to be a musician.
Right.
And when I came back, I had recorded some songs. One of those songs got on the radio, and then it was kind of off to the races there. Me and Steve were playing all over the place, and then it started becoming like touring Canada. I got management, I got an agent. We got a more regular bass player, Matty. He's still in the fold. Steve, he he eventually got to a point where he wasn't enjoying the touring anymore. So I've got a different guy behind the kit now. And I got a backup guitar player. He's awesome. Pete, he's wicked, and my buddy Chris. And so I got this. I kind of just accumulated players, and it sort of revolves a little bit with who's available. But as time passed, the tours started being further and more numerous, and it's just stuck to that trend. And so now I'm trying to have spares for everybody now, because there's so many dates coming in that it's like, gosh, these guys need sleep and they have families and jobs, and I can't afford to pay them huge amounts to keep them on retainer or anything like that yet. So hopefully I can get there and I can just pay everybody a chunk salary and be like, there you go,
Oh,
you're
for
good for
sure.
the year. But I'm a long way from that.
Oh, you definitely getting there. No, that's so cool to hear how you put it together. And yeah, I know how that goes, man. You put together a band, and this guy's in, and then he's got to leave, and then you find the replacements and the missing parts. Yeah, it's always moving parts. But like I said, I saw your clips at least on YouTube, and like it's solid, man. You can really play. I love not only your voice, but I love your lead playing. When you go into those arpeggios, man, it's like, dude, it's so cool. Where are you coming from with the guitar? Like, who are your guitar favorites?
First and still favorite, Angus Young, ACDC. He's
Yeah,
the best.
yeah,
But yeah, after that it was Steve Ray Vaughan, and then Jimi Hendrix. Like and Jimmy is like almost tied for first place. He's so creative, and for more than just his guitar, like his lyrics, the creative way that he just made everything swirl and twirl and become a song. Uh, yeah, he blows my mind. I think he's one of the greatest songwriters and lyricists out there, and like a very underrated singer. Like people kind of never like, he doesn't have a classically great voice, but if it was sang any other way, it would sound wrong, I think.
it'd be
I don't
totally
really hear
different.
people cover it. It's like, nah, Jimmy, he's the full package of great.
Yeah,
But yes, definitely. There was a guy named Nuno Betancourt for Extreme. Actually, he's kind of had a resurgence, it seems like, lately.
he has.
He's sick.
Isn't he sick, man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I remember hearing him for the first time. I got given the Porn and Graffiti Extreme album,
Oh yeah.
and I was just like,
Yeah.
who is this guy?
Yeah. Out of control.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Um, yeah, those were like the main. There was another guy named Blues Saraceno. I don't know if he's around anymore, but he had a couple albums that were like really great. It was kind of like Joe Satriani sort of stuff, where it's just instrumental guitar, but he had hooks, and
Yeah.
like it would like be a real melody there that you could follow. It was like really pretty, but like super awesome at the same time.
Right.
Who else did I like? Yeah, for guitar players, that's kind of.
That's a great mix. No, I that's a great mix. Yeah, and then as far as vocals and songwriting, I mean, growing up, who were some of your favorite artists that you'd hear them and you're just like, man, if I could write a song like that or do anything like that or anything, just that pulled you in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously those same guys I just mentioned, I just wanted to be like that. Still do. Uh, I love the Grateful Dead. I think some of their like they've got like 4 or 5 albums that I really dig, and then a pile of stuff I'm not really too sure about. Uh, but I think some of the stuff they've written is really cool. I love Muse. I don't write stuff like Muse, but I'd love to have another band where it's like that.
Oh yeah.
I love reggae. I remember like Bob Marley is definitely my favorite. I love Burning Spear, but I'll never. I had heard like the Marley stuff, and then it was I was coming home from a wedding, and we'd like snuck into the back and taken a keg and put it in the van that we were all going to this after party in. And the guy who was driving put in the Legend album, and I'd never really listened to it back to front before. And I was just, he had this great sound system. And obviously, reggae, there's a lot of bass in there. I'd never really experienced it like that before. I'd only heard it in like my mom's minivan on the way home to school or whatever. And it was like, wow, this is so much better than I ever realized.
Yeah.
And we listened to the whole album, and I went out and bought it the next day and listened to it nonstop. And I love it. Once again, his lyrics are just really beautiful, and the melodies are really beautiful. And the guitar, I think it's Peter Tosh that plays the guitar in that band.
Pete Tosh,
I
yeah,
thought
great
he was
guitar player.
excellent.
He was
Yeah.
good, man. Yeah.
So yeah, like early songwriting. Well, these days I'm really enjoying like Charlie Crockett. I think is really kick ass, like super simple, but just interesting somehow and really laid back. Uh Jeez. I've been listening to a lot of like kind of under the radar stuff. Um, People that I meet at festivals. I'm just like, what do you got? And also people send me stuff. I had this guy send me some music yesterday, and like each of his songs had like a couple hundred listens each. So I was like, oh, okay, not expecting much. But then the
Yeah.
first song, I clicked on it, and it was awesome. I was just kind of like, how is this guy not out there? And like, if the production quality was really low. And so I was
Yeah.
thinking, if this production was higher, would he be famous? Would he be like kicking ass off in the rock world somewhere? But yeah, I don't know. Jeez, what am I listening? I'm kind of head in the sand a little bit. I just write songs. I come home, I
Yeah.
play guitar, I do my own thing, but I'm trying to stretch out again and be like more like my teenage self that was more curious,
Yeah. Well, you
listening to
are.
everybody else.
You are. I hear it in the music, and that's, so glad you brought that up because I think the first song I heard from you was Cherry.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, dude, man, that really I loved everything about it from the writing to your voice. And the greatest thing that I love is that the end of the song when you go into that riff and just go off, man. I wish more artists would do that where it's just like, you got the structure and then you just got the part where you're just gonna do your thing and you're just gonna go full 100 miles an hour. I mean, how'd you come up with that riff? Like how, man?
That just came out. You know what? Uh, I have found that as I've gone and been like searching for the keys to getting out further and become like, because I'm so addicted to what I do. Um, I'm being like persuaded by a lot of people in the industry to not do that kind of thing, but I'm very resistant to that. And at that point in time, when I had written that thing in Cherry, I think I was listening to a little bit more Metallica, and so I wanted to squish a little Metallica in there, and that just like classically influenced shredding and chord progressions, and yeah, so I snuck it in there, and luckily the producer thought it was really cool. It's hard to find guys like that are like, yeah, you want to
Right?
do and put it in there, go for it, because
Right.
I'm being told, yeah, more than I'm comfortable with to like ditch that shit and just find choruses and stuff, and
Yeah.
it it's just it becomes not. I just want to do so much more than sing catchy songs. I want to shred. I want to have moments in the show that are so fun to play, because when you're watching and you're seeing guys have fun or people have fun up on stage, everybody has fun no matter what's going on,
Yeah.
unless you hate it. And yeah, so I try to inject as much like stuff that's going to excite my brain into my songs, and if I can't get them into the recorded version like Cherry, like that goes off, I
You'll do it live.
on to the live version.
Yeah.
I've just like, for instance, I don't know if you heard our song Two Wolves. It's on the Horizons album. Okay, it's like boo 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 boo, 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 and then I have like a catchy chorus, and I really love the song. I like how it turned out. There's even a little guitar solo in there, some
Yeah.
whistling. Yeah. It's really catchy. But recently, because I'm like, I love this chorus, I want to jam over it longer. So I added like a country pickup. So at the end of the song, and then we go off, and everybody goes off. And I'm like, keyboards. And Chris is like, and it's just fun stuff for the show. But yeah, I try to like, you know, when I was younger and I was playing, I would just close my eyes and play and go everywhere. I felt like I was floating through space, and try and like give myself the opportunity to do that on stage. I don't want to think too hard up there. I do inevitably anyways, but yeah, my guitar is kind of like my escape.
Well, it's more fun, right? When you can go out there a little bit, and I think it's great too that you were working in the studio with someone who's wasn't trying to, because I know exactly what you mean. It's like, well, let's stick to the verse, let's stick to the chorus. Like, no, let's jam, you know?
Yeah.
Right? So that's really cool that you had that support to do it, and that you do it, because I think you got to do what you feel in that authenticity. Like the audience picks it right up.
Yeah.
They pick it right up. So that is so cool. Yeah, I thought it was brave. It's the thing is sometimes it's kind of like what you're saying. I'll see artists or bands that I'll hear the record and I'll be like, that one part was a great riff. I wish live they would just kind of go delve into that, just stay there for a little while. And then I'll see it and it's like, oh man, this is played it just like the record. Like you can expand a little bit, but to each their own. But yeah, that's one of the great things about Cherry and your other songs, like Any Time of Night, I really like. I mean, tell me about the process of in the studio with a song like that. I mean, how do you put it together? You start off with a guitar riff and then you write lyrics, or what's one way that you would do that?
Well, Any Time of Night specifically, I was just driving down the road. I'd had like this great makeup with this girl, and I was a younger guy, and she was just a rocket babe, and I was in love, and I was just grinning ear to ear. It was a sunny day, and I was coming around Happy Valley Road, which is in Machosen, and I just blurted it out, any time of night, any time of day. And there was the chorus. The whole thing was just like right there. And I was like, oh, wow, that feels really good. For me at the time, though, I'd never written anything like that. And I was on like, my like young man testosterone brain was like, that's maybe a little sucky for what I do. I'm singing about gentle things, about love. Maybe that's not me. And then I played it for my buddy Steve, and I had a little bit more worked into it. It was chorus, a bit of a verse and whatnot. And he's like, sat there straight face. He listened to it. I was like, what do you think? He's like, I don't like it. I fucking love it. It's so good. I was like, oh, okay. so then in the studio, like, because it's very much kind of a feel song. I had a really good producer working with me there. His name was Joby Baker. He's an island guy, and he was like, well, he's actually where's he from? He's really from Britain, and so he's like, all right, mate. What I feel like this needs is to be live. I sound more Australian. I'm not doing this very good. I haven't seen it.
No, that sounds about right.
But yeah, we're gonna do it live. And I'm like, okay, sure. So at the time, like, I didn't have the best timing. I've worked on that a lot, but in the studio, it's a little bit more controlled. You can just focus in on what you're doing. And so we played that as a 3-piece live, and then he added, I think I sang it live. Maybe I'd overdubbed the guitar solo, spilt myself a little bit of room there, and then he overdubbed the keyboard into it, and then that was it. It was done. And there was no changes he wanted to make to the song. He felt like it had a nice flow. He was very much like that guy really got me as a human and as an artist. Like, he's just like, let's let Roper do his thing, and I'll just nudge it to better places. The guy I'm working with now, he's a whole lot more in depth. Also gets me, but in like such a completely different way. And the way he would let me go live, but oftentimes we don't have a drummer there on the same day. So we tend to, I'll have a song, and he's very much like, no, we're gonna make you famous, Roper. So, so he's like cutting fat wherever he can. But if I have like say like some kind of crazy guitar thing I want to go off on, if he listens to it and the whole thing from start to finish keeps his ear, he's like, all right, we'll keep that. But if it's not, he's like, gone. See it. You can do it live. I don't care. And so he's a beauty. But I don't get to record live these days. I really like to, but it's money, time, and scheduling. He lives in Toronto, but oftentimes what I'll do is like I'll go in. Here's what I'm thinking for the song. I'll hopefully have the song all sorted out lyric wise. Oftentimes I don't know with him. We've had some success, just me. I'm comfortable enough with him to like freestyle on the mic and get it sometimes,
Yeah.
or work on lyrics while I'm sitting there while he's doing something else. Man, it's gone so many different ways with this guys, and I've had success, and then some other stuff where I felt like, okay, I didn't quite have the ingredients to the soup that I needed, and now it's recorded. I don't like it as much, but uh, Jace, I'm getting off the track here. I feel like
Not at all. Not at all. That brings me to another great question is like, how do you know, the song that pops, you know, you're crazy about that song, but the song that you listen back to, you're like, man, I don't know about that one. Like,
yeah.
how do you know? How do you know it's clicking in the ones that don't?
Well, I mean, if I unconsciously am bobbing my head and tapping my toe, I got it. If I'm thinking while I'm listening to it, I probably didn't get it. And you know, I've had a couple of those go out, and I always find my fans react best to the stuff that makes me bob my head. So I try to get it there. But it's, you know, as time has gone past and I've been searching for my way through this industry and how to make a living and keep it going, I've sometimes rushed things and not been prepared enough or listened to advice that didn't resonate with me. And maybe I should have listened to my gut more and not rushed, or said, you know what, that's good enough. Or you know what, he's right. This chorus is pop music friendly and I should just leave it there. Or, you know, like um there's been, you know, things where the I put it out and thought it was shit and other people thought it was good. There's been times when I thought it was shit and other people thought it was shit. And that's the toughest, is because then people tell you it's garbage and you're like, I know. Yeah, that's tough. So I tried it like I went through a whole I got through the horizon. Okay, so Access to Infinity was the first time I ever put out an album, was like, I'm not sure this is as good as it could have been. And that was the first time I received like any kind of flack, because people were invested in my art by this point. So I took some feedback that was like, oh, I agree with you, and this is hard for me to hear, but I know that I kind of agree with these people and the negative things that they're saying. At the same time as I think it's good. It's not a bad record. There's some parts that I really like, and some bits I feel like I nailed. Then I got in the studio and did Horizons with Gus, and I felt like we totally nailed it. After that, I I think I tried to rush everything a little bit. And so there's a whole bunch of recordings that we did, and I feel like 30% of them um, didn't come out as good as they could have. And then there's a bunch that are pretty darn good, a few that kick ass. So it was all a learning experience, which led me to the last 5 recordings that I just did. And man, I can't wait to put those out. Like my manager is like nervous about them, which makes me feel like it's a good sign. He's like, they're a little bit jammy. I'm like, I know. And when I listen to these, like I listen to them again and again and again. Like I already know that even if they don't go over well, like number one, I have to enjoy this. And I've learned that. It's taken me a while. I've always known
Right.
it, but it's taken me a while to come all the way around the circle to be like, oh, this is about this.
Yeah.
I have to stay true to that. Though I feel like I've done a pretty good job of staying pretty true to it. You know, I've tried to cut corners and done work. So, yeah, I'm pumped. I feel like everything I've done, I've learned a lot and kind of come full circle in a good way. And I'm optimistic about the future of the Jesse Roper project.
Well, I am too. And, I think that, absolutely, we can always look back and say, okay, I could have done this different. But from what you're telling me, it sounds like you've trusted your gut quite a bit. And it also sounds to me that you didn't do too much over, I don't know about that's like when you feel right about it, you've moved forward, which is better. I mean, some artists just, they just can get stuck in their head. That doesn't seem to be your deal. No, it's
No, I try to forgive myself for my mistakes and just move on and keep
yeah.
plowing forward. Like my dad is, I think I get this from him a lot. Like he's very much a like grit your teeth and push through the pain kind of guy. And I have a lot of that in me. And like it takes a lot. I just don't, I'm not a quit kind of guy. I'll always keep on clawing and scraping my way to doing this. And I enjoy it. That's how I get through life. And yeah, the music industry is something else, man. I've learned a lot about it and had a lot of eye-opening experiences and humbling experiences, which have also been really good for me as a human in general. Well, yeah, you know what's on that note? I mean, this industry is kind of like, I think if I didn't do it, I'd have never learned my limits in some ways, and this kind of led me on a path of learning better who I am as an individual, and that's a really beautiful thing. And I've come to like myself a lot more through like just trying and exploring, and I don't know, just having
Just do it.
successes. Yeah.
Just moving forward. And that brings up another thing that you bring up that I wanted to ask you is humbling experiences. And so many kids or whoever's getting into music or first picking up that guitar, and they see someone who plays very well as yourself, and they say, well, he's just got it. You know what I mean? He's just got it, man. He just picked up, started playing, and he just knows how to write songs, and he just knows how to sing well. I mean, can you tell us a humbling experience that you had in your journey up till today, where it's like, it at the time it was like that is a little painful, but you got through it, and you're a better artist and a better person today because of it.
Man, there's been so many. I mean, I guess the first time when I started, like, I used to have an unreal belief in myself. Like, I've always had, like, if I try, I'll get there belief in like most things in life. I feel like I'm pretty capable if I try. And I remember when I first was like playing around and I went to Toronto, and I always had this thought in my head, like, nobody's ever seen what I can do, which was kind of nonsense, but I told myself and I believed it that. And and then I got out there and like started playing around, and I remember like then I started comparing myself realistically to not my peers, but the people who were doing it, the real cats. Jimi Hendrix. Am I as good as Jimi Hendrix? No. How good you got to be in this industry and be making it? Well, I guess you got to be like Jimi Hendrix, or like the people of modern day who are doing it. Am I that good? No. So that was humbling, and then it just like shattered my whole illusion of like how good I was, and I started like picking on my singing voice and being like, it's nowhere near good enough. I need to get it better. And I remember people saying to me too when I first started singing, I'd have sang all night and people would be like, actually, this would be the first humbling experience for sure. I'd be writing these songs and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm getting it pretty good. I knew I wasn't the best singer. And but I remember like my first couple of gigs playing and singing all night, and then getting off the stage and having the first guy come up to me and be like, dude, that was so good. If you just had a lead singer, that would be amazing. And I was like,
Oh, oh, oh
oh,
no.
you just rocked me. And I had a couple people say similar things like that night. And I was like, okay, I got to really work on this. And I didn't know how to work on it. My dad was like, well, you got to sing from your diaphragm. Like, he's not a singer. He just heard that being said. It's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, how do you feel that? What is that? I went to singing lessons. I still didn't understand. It took me years to be like, oh, I think I'm pushing from the right spot. It was actually I finally got told how to like lip trill, and I started just doing it. And then I started paying attention to where I pushed inwards because I thought it was a lifting up, or that's how it was like explained to me. I don't know. As soon as I started pushing in from the lip drill, I started being able to like push my voice outwards. And that's what's got me to be able to sing. And then not trying to sing so hard. Oh, that was a big lesson. But yeah, a lot of those humbling experiences came from learning how to sing. Just put myself out there singing my own songs and sucking and having
See,
people tell me.
but that it's so great that you share that because I hear your voice and I think, man, that dude can sing like legit for real. And the voice and the performance of it. And to know that, someone said that to you. I mean but it seems like it propelled you even further. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got a choice. You can take those things and use them as motivation, or you can let it squish you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Let it burn a little bit, right? But then turn it into to fuel or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can't be angry about it either. I've found that, like, somebody says something that maybe rattles you a bit, thank them for it. Okay, I'm gonna do it. You know, you'll
Yeah.
get better. Then
Yeah.
you don't have any negative feelings holding you down.
What would you say? One thing that I always experienced was that sometimes, particularly with music, someone and maybe they've got an expertise or they know somebody or something like that, but they come to you with advice and it's not bad advice. It's just not for you. It's
Mm.
it's for somebody that's like, well, that's that kind like you're not really I'm not that kind of artist. Have you ever have anything like that? It's just like,
Pretty well daily. I got so many people telling me how to do this. It's unbelievable. Something I'm trying to recognize now is like, oftentimes when people are hitting you with opinions, like just the way that they'll approach you is maybe off-putting. And I'm trying to stop myself from being off-put by their way and just like hear their words and be like, do those resonate with me or not? Or is it like my ego being like, I don't like this guy. Like you can shut up whatever he's saying. And so I'm trying to like be very patient with people when they're telling me how to do it better and just listen to the words, ask myself why I might be off put by whatever it is. Uh, and it's be like, well, is there any of it that I do agree with or do feel like that would help me to do? And getting a little better at it. And yeah, I try to just sift through all of it because a lot of people will in their like say they say 10 things that would help you, one or two probably would. And if you just listen to it and like maybe focus a little more attention in that area, because chances are good I'm often thinking the similar things anyways. And it helps to be open-minded to whatever people are saying. Sometimes they do have a little point. Even if you need to change that completely somehow to suit what you're doing, it's worth listening. And ultimately, I often find that people are saying that because they want you to do better. And so I want to do better for them. I want to prove them right. Hey, you've got it. Why don't you try this and maybe you'll make it? Well, I'm just trying to like, okay, maybe I'll try that. Maybe I make it. Maybe you can be proud because you told me to do it. Hey, we both win.
That's right. They're coming from the right place. Yeah. That I've seen that too. Now, with your live shows, I mean, I could tell that you take a lot of pride in your shows and you throw down. I mean, what's your approach to putting together your set list or your show? Or I mean, how do you do that? What are you thinking when you put that together?
Well, usually I'm trying to create a little arc. I've got some crazy, not all the music fits together as a package of like, it's like a Jesse Roper mixtape that's out there to the world. And so putting it together is a little tricky. And so I try to start a little more mellow, a little more groovy, and we add the grooving. We go up and down with the groove, and then I start injecting the bouncy rock and rollers. And at the end, we got the cherries and like the Redbirds and some of the older stuff that's a little bit more like, "Whoa." I just wrote one. I just wrote two new ones that are like, woohoo. So I try to just like gradually build people up. And I find it works pretty good. Like Here's the other thing, like, my crowd is like, is a great span in age. Like sometimes my front row, I'll have like a couple 20-year-old chicks, and then there's like an 80-year-old dude beside them, and then a family group
Yeah.
beside them. And like, so it's like already I have such a span. And if I blow their heads off right away, sure, maybe the young people are like, ah,
All
or the old
right.
folks are like, oh, you can see their eyes are sort of glazing over. And so I try to like just like sort of gradually bring everybody up. And it seems to work pretty good, but I've tried all kinds of different ways, and maybe I could do it however. And if people like my music, they just want to hear the energy stuff anyways right off the bat. But I don't know. I just try to make something that's going to be for fun for me to do as well, and create my little jam sessions here and there. And I love putting together little like interludes and segues and little extra little bits that really just keep my mind excited. So it's not the same thing every night. And yeah, we've now played tours where there's been folks that have followed us to 4 or 5 different shows in a row. Holy smokes. We're going to keep these people's attention spans. And so we try to shift it up a little bit. And I've asked lots of them, like, hey, how are we doing? You guys just saw 5 shows in the row. And they're like, they're all different. It was all great. I didn't really move too many things around. I just changed the jams and said different stories. And yeah, I don't know,
Keep
man. I
it
just crossed my fingers, really.
keep it interesting.
Yeah, I try to get myself up before the shows too. Like every night, like I don't know, do my breathing exercises, get warmed up, treat it like sports a little bit. Like get ready to go play the game of my life, and that's pretty important for me. I don't like to roll out there flat and get warmed up. I like to come out like, all right, we're gonna have fun.
So how do you do? You do vocal warm ups and do a couple songs backstage, warming up.
I find it's integral to go out and get like a good leg stretch in. If I can get like a 45-minute walk in before I go out on stage, I go up on stage feeling so much better. And sometimes I'll do like some push-ups and squats and whatever, just get my blood going. And recently I've been playing a ton of harmonica before I get on the stage. I mean, it just seems to open me up so much more than even just vocal warm-ups. And then I'm like, I can feel my energy level is like up, and then I'm charged and I'm ready to go. But if I don't like charge myself, yeah, then I feel then I gotta get there. And I just want to be charged every night already before I get on stage.
You want to get on stage hot and ready,
Yeah, I want people to already feel like the energy is up here before I play the note.
So what's your typical day like on the road? Do you have any routines of how you start your day and getting up into the show, getting into the zone? Like how's the day start?
And I mean, that touring's such a a crazy thing. I remember phoning this drummer. I needed a drummer, and he was apparently a really experienced guy. And I remember being on the phone with him, and I'm like, yeah, so this is kind of the idea. This we're gonna be gone for this month long, and he stopped me. He's like, well, how much free time are we gonna have? Like, I have this other job, and I need to be able to do it, and I'm gonna need like 6 hours a day to do that. And I was like, have, have you ever been on the road before, man? Like, we're gonna be driving a lot. I can't guarantee you any time, any free time at all, really. Like, unless you can do what you do in the van, there's probably none. And you get days where you have lots of time to do your thing and whatnot, but I just count on having no time. I get up, I try to, like crack my eyes open. I have a coffee first thing every day now. I've become like just like coffee is life. I get a coffee. If I got some time to do some yoga and like stretch out before I get in the van, once again, go for a walk, like get myself like opened up and my blood moving and I'm feeling a little bit alive first thing in the morning. And then, you get in the van. I got a sweet group of guys that I'm touring with these days. And like 2 of them in particular love to talk, and they're really funny. It's not just like blabber splabber that nobody cares about. Like they're like pointed, funny dudes. And so I'm so lucky to have people like everybody in the van is got good things to say. We all get along really good. So the drives tend to go by at least amusingly well. And sometimes it gets quiet, but in that everybody's comfortable in their silence. um, you know, we stop and we get our second coffee. We stop and we get our third coffee, maybe. Road food is always important. We try to make sure we're picking the best coffee place. That takes up a lot of time. Our buddy, my Chris, my keyboard player, he's kind of like IT tech guy. And when we need a real stiff coffee, we're like, Chris, you look that up because he's got the best eye for like coffee shops and the snobbiest, best roasts out there. He seems to find them. So we leave that to him. And yeah, I mean, coming into the venues, yeah, try and get out for a walk for 5 or 10 minutes if we got the time. I mean, there's just so little time when you're on the road. It's like squeeze in any kind of happiness when you can. And most of that's just like friendly banter with the guys. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, get there, sound check, I try to maybe while we're sound checking, maybe while the guys running lines and whatnot, we'll have a little jam session, play something completely bonkers, whatever. Somebody starts a riff. Next thing you know, we're all jamming a little bit. That really helps. I notice like everybody's mind relaxes if we can get a little jam session going. You don't always have time, but and then I'll just try to sing about whatever just to loosen me up vocally. And sometimes we'll get into these jams about like Tim Hortons coffee or like Narnia or you name it, man. It's all been sung about out there, and yeah, just try to loosen up in any old way we can before we get out and do it all again. So I think a big part of it is trying to keep every day a little bit new and make sure like we get our sleep and our coffee, and yeah, just try to remember to keep a grin on your face.
Yeah.
Best we can do out there.
Keeping it fresh. Yeah. So tell me about Georgia Train, your latest single, which I really like. Tell me about that.
Oh man, I wrote that driving through Germany actually last October, and it's like there's no story that brought me to that story. I was just cruising along, and I had a big like 8-hour drive into somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it was. At the time, I'd had a little bit of success writing these kind of JJ Cale style songs. I'm a huge JJ Cale fan.
Yeah.
And so that kind of vibe was in my head, and then this guitar riff just popped into my head as I was driving through Germany. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm feeling that. Maybe I'll pull over." I had a little bit extra time. I got out early, and so I pulled over at this rest stop, and I dragged my guitar out of the back of the van. And I got a cup. I was in this camper van, and I got a little coffee brewing over here on the stove that was in there. And in the meantime, I started just riffing,
There we go.
And so I started writing that, and then I think I just blurted out, "There's a train on the tracks in the sleepy little town in Georgia. There's a man in the shadow standing just off to the side. Ain't quite sure what he's gonna do." And then I was like, "What is he gonna do? What are we talking about here?" So then I had to stop and be like, "What is happening in Georgia? And why am I singing about Georgia? Am I even singing about that?" I tried the lyrics all different ways, but I usually find the first thing I come up with, if I follow it, it's the best. And because it's kind of the most natural. Whatever falls into your head, even if it seems lame, usually you can make it pretty cool by just following it.
I was going to ask you that. First idea first. That usually is the best thing.
Yeah,
right.
Because it's just natural. You don't want to. Anytime I try to force things, which I do all the time, I can't help it but be like, it can be better. I'll try and change it or whatever. I don't know. That's part of the process, I guess, is realizing, no, that sucked. Try what you were trying, but first. And so I stuck with it. And I think it was like 3 days later, I had a little break. I was still in Germany, and I rented this little this trailer. It was cold out. This trailer, I couldn't close the door, and so I stuffed all my socks and just wedged this door closed as best I could. And then I wrote the rest of that song that night with my time off. And then I had a little bit of recording time at the end. I flew home from Europe. On the way, I stopped in Toronto to work with Gus, and I had like a few songs that we went through that were ready. And then he had time for one more, and I was like, "What do you think of this one? I just came up with this." And so I sat down, jammed it out with him. 10 minutes later, we were plugged in, getting the click track. We decided to go with like he's got this old drum machine from the '60s, so it doesn't have like a beat counter. It's just got a little knob, and you just turn it. It doesn't tell you how fast you're going.
You have no
I
idea.
just kept on turning it, and then there's like 6 other buttons that like I don't even know really how this thing works. I don't think he does either. It's sort of random.
Just start turning knobs.
We just kept on turning knobs until we had like, and I'm like, that feels about right. So he recorded it doing that, put it on the computer on his Pro Tools, and then like mapped out like what like the tempo, that kind of thing, so we could mess around if we wanted to cut and paste and chop and swap and do whatever. And then by the end of that night, that song was pretty well done because we didn't need a drummer to come in, and he plays the bass, and it was very simple. And instantly I was like, "Ooh, this one's got the hips." It's one of those ones where I was like, "I got it," and it's one of the ones I can still listen to and feel like, "Yeah, nailed that one. That's how I wanted it to come out. Sounds killer."
That is awesome. Do you find that it's easy to keep that same original idea when you were driving in Europe to the studio with Gus? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it easy to keep that same idea flowing, or does it kind of evolve over time?
It evolves for sure. And
Yeah.
sometimes it goes the wrong way, sometimes it goes the right way. Something I'm learning is like trust in Gus. And
Trusting Gus.
yeah, I used to, because I started off doing that with Gus. I'd just show him the song, he'd take it his direction, and I'd be like, whoa, that's so different. But we had some real success for that. And then I started like um taking the songs and being inspired by his way of creating, that I'd kind of like go my way of creating, but in a Gus style. But I do it at home, and I bring like just a mess of ideas. And sometimes it worked out really good. He'd take all my ideas and shuffle them, and and it would work out. But other times it's sort of like, I don't know, it sort of muddied the waters for his general vision of things. So um now I'll try to have like my pre-production in my head, maybe on the computer. But before I show him any of that, I show him me playing the guitar, or playing the song just on the guitar first, so that he can get his head wrapped around like what he's hearing in his head. And I think that's working out to be the better way, because yeah, sometimes I come up with some really groovy stuff that gets added into the songs that I'm like, oh, thank goodness I got that. But in general, I think we get a more cohesive, cool end product if I just play him the song, and it's like a black and white sketch. And
Yeah.
then he gets his paintbrush out and puts the color on it. And then we work together on fine tuning all that. Most of my favorite tunes that I've got out there that I've done with him we've done it like that. So now that's what I do. And that's what I did with that song. It's like just acoustic. Here you go, bud. And then he starts futzing with tones, and he's like, you keep playing. I just want to like, get this amp tone dialed in to like what I'm getting. And sometimes he takes me way by surprise. Like for instance, in Georgia Train, the guitar solo sound, that like tape warble,
I was,
strange echoey thing.
yeah, what is that?
I don't even know. So many things. He was pressing buttons and changing them, and he's got like the old space echo machine on top of the console, and he's over there and he's futzing with that at the same time. And so I try to just keep on playing while he's getting these tones, so I can like feel it too. And occasionally I'll be like, no, man, like I just don't feel that. But I try to let him get to where he's going before I say anything. And usually like he'll pass my like I'll be feeling it, and I'll be like, oh, stop there, I'm feeling it. Then he'll go one notch further with something that I didn't see coming, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, we can roll with that. um yeah, and we try to always end up agreeing, which is really cool. He listens to my input, and yeah, it's just like that. I try to like just be patient, let him get his paintbrush out, and then we try to come together. But yeah, that guitar tone, the lead guitar tone, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not sure I like this. And he's like, well, just try it out. And I was like, okay. And it made me play something completely different than I was going to. Because I think he knew that I was going to go like classic JJ Cale style lead, or like some kind of like old timey lead that is a guitar lead, not like a part of the song necessarily. And that lead tone made me do more of like a rhythmic thing. Like I play a little bit of lead, but it's a lot less complex than what I might have done. So now it's like another part to the song rather than a guitar lead. And I think it's really cool. Now when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that
It's
is so
perfect.
cool.
Perfect. Isn't that it's perfect? Isn't that funny? Like when you experiment with the guitar sound and it just like you take a whole left turn.
It changes everything, you know? Yeah, even yeah, every part of the song when done differently changes everything. That's one of the things I miss writing with people. Like it's Jesse Roper. I'm writing all this stuff from my on my own. But yeah, I remember like when Steve and I used to jam back in the day, things would take hard left turns and it would feel natural because you're just like responding to what that person's doing. And I don't have any of that in my creative process unless it's in the studio, but it's a little bit more conscious in the studio because you got a ton of money on the line and time is of the essence. And it's harder to just like relax and get into like a flow state in there. I have to be a little bit more prepared, knowing what I'm going to do. Now, I look forward to the day. I hope to get to the day because my bandmates are all over the place. Like my drummer's he's from Ontario. I live in
Okay.
BC, on the island in Vancouver, and my bass player he's in Vancouver. You might as well be in Ontario. Like that ferry takes all. It's like an all day experience. And then the other guys got other bands and lives, and so we don't jam and write together. But something I dream of doing because these guys are all killer musicians is like buying their time for 2 weeks and going somewhere quiet and jamming and trying to write an album with the guys because I know we could write something probably better than anything I've got out there. Just yeah, because we'd be able to work off each other a little bit. I miss doing that, and yeah, um, something I'm definitely aiming for in the
Well,
future.
that'd be a heck of fun. So tell me about these. When's the next batch of songs coming out, or album, or EP? What's next?
Yeah, my manager was just telling me this. I've been on the. I don't even care when we have an album, well, because it's so much of an investment to put out a record. I don't find all that many people buy. It's not like they fly off the shelves and fill my bank account up with money so I can go do it again. Like it's a slow trickle. And so I've been having success with just going to the studio, spending the money, and then putting out single at a time. And the world hears all of them. I'm like, perfect. We're making headway. But I guess it's still pertinent in the industry. And people ask me this, fans and whatnot, when you putting out a record. And so it's Frankie, my manager, or Steven, sorry. He says to me the other day, okay, Jess, we got to wrap this up. We've been putting out singles, and it's like, where are we going with this? We got to eventually get out a record. So it's time to put out a record. And I think we put out 2 more singles, maybe 3, and then we go to the record. He's like going through all these ideas of what songs are gonna finish this thing off. And of course, I'm like, no, that's shit song. We like toss that one. Who cares? He's like, yeah, but it fits. You see, we gotta make it all fit. I'm like, oh, there's so much sense to that, but I hate it. But anyway, so we're working through that process right now of like what's gonna make up the final album. But that's gonna happen. It's sounding like early or late spring. I'll have a next record, and then I've still got this whole catalog of other songs that we haven't put out. But like I said, I wrote these 5 new ones, and there's I just can't wait to get him out. And he's keen on them too, thankfully, which makes me really happy. So we're like, okay, let's put out this record and then get you back in the studio and yeah, get working on the next thing, which starts with these next 5 that you did. And we'll start putting those out one at a time. So I imagine if we're putting out a record in the spring, he's gonna want to. He's talking about going on this huge American tour and keeping going everything that we've been doing. But I imagine it'll be like a month or like 3 or 4 months. We just solely focus on what the record is and we're promoting that. But then we'll start putting out singles again. for the next record. Like, I just want to be continuous. I think that's the only way I'm going to make any headway in this industry, is to keep on having fresh content. And I've got myself to a point where, like, I can afford to do that and keep this project alive. And hopefully, one or some of these songs like really make a bigger impact and start paving a bigger way for me. And we'll just see what happens. I'm not going to quit no matter what. And I'm just going to keep on writing songs and putting them out there one way or another. So yeah, that's kind of the overview. Is like record in spring and then big tour. And I got this killer American agent. He came on last year when I got home from Europe. And Frankie, we'd have been working on getting an American agent. And he phones me up. He's like, "Good news, we got an American agent." I'm like, "No kidding." I had zero expectations. He's with Madison House. His name's Harry. Sounds like a good guy. He really likes your tunes. He wants to work with you. I'm like, "Oh, perfect." Because if you work with people who you're like, "Can I work with you?" in this industry, you get bones thrown. If you got people who like you and believe in you, you get more.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this guy was like, "Look, I love your tunes." I got to hang out with him in Nashville. He set us up on this nice tour. And in Nashville, he came to the shows. And it's the first time any agent I've ever worked with has done that. Actually, my European guy, Tame, too. He's great as well. But he was like, I was kind of probing him a little bit, like, "What's your thoughts on the band?" And he's a fan. He's fan first and supporter second. And he was like, "No, I can fill your schedule 365 days a year." I was like, "Prove it." And he has, man. Like, I've never toured so much in my life. I've never been so tired and I've never ever thought I need some time off,
Yeah.
ever. I'm always like, "Next, more, what's going on?" And for the first time in my life, I'm like, I just kind of like need to turn it all off and go on a mountain bike adventure for a week or something like that. Like, I need to do something completely different. We'll like a beach in Mexico if I can afford that, But yeah, he's got me working. So I have no doubt that next year we will release an album and actually be on tour, a large amount. So I'm so excited. It's cool. And like I said, the guys I'm with right now, they're down to do that and try and forge ahead and create a opportunity for us all to enjoy. Yeah, hopefully we can make that happen for ourselves. And hopefully the next album is a success. If it's not, I'm really feeling confident about some of this future stuff.
Oh, got to. It's great. You're a great artist, great songs. I see it getting bigger and bigger.
Thanks. Well, I'm gonna try and make you right.
Yo, prove me right.
I'm gonna.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much. And when are you ever going to come to Los Angeles, man? I want to see you play.
Los Angeles. Trying to think if I got anything. I don't have anything in that neighborhood. A lot of it's been on the East Coast.
I
Oddly
saw
enough.
that. North Carolina, and or
Yeah,
like Tennessee, which are great places. I mean, those are awesome crowds.
but I'm not complaining. But it's curious as I'm on the West Coast. Why we're not just going south. I'm sure it
yeah.
will happen though. I mean, I'm gonna say at this point, if we're releasing this album in the spring, chances are good we're probably going to be on the West Coast in the spring, because I'm sure, have some kind of routing that's going around America and hitting all the spots. I got to Los Angeles on the Dylan LeBlanc tour. Dylan was kind enough after my European tour with him. He's like, "Hey man, we really liked you. If you want to come on an American tour with us, y'all be more than welcome." I was like, I would love nothing more. So we got home from Europe immediately. He's like flying to America and going with Dylan again. Trying to think of the place we played. Can't remember the name of it now, but it was like in Los Angeles. But yeah, my vocal mic went out and my guitar stopped working on like song 3.
Oh no.
And it was like, I don't know what to do. So luckily it was a small crowd. So I just played acoustic for everybody for the like next 2, 3 songs. And everybody loved it because it was like a screw up that went well. And everybody went real quiet and listened to me while I was on stage. And it was a pretty cool show. So anyways, Los Angeles, big cool city. I like that place. It's a lot of people watching out there.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting place for sure. But I wonder more about your scene, in Canada and the different places. I mean, it seems like it's a lot of really good musicians up there.
There is. You know what there's good musicians all over the place. Every corner, every small town, every little community, everybody knows somebody who's really kick ass. That's another really humbling thing. You think you're pretty good, but then you meet Joe Shabubi, who's playing at a bar down the road. Nobody even knows him. And you're like, whoa, whoa. And you ask him, how come you're not doing this? And he's like, oh, I have a friend. His name's Ollie Perquet. I'll never forget this guy. He should be a musician. He was good at he's one of these guys good at everything going through school. I remember. And one day he says to me, "Hey Roper, I'm learning guitar." And I'm like, "Oh, cool, Ollie. How's it going?" "Oh, I like it." I was like, "You want to jam?" He's like, "Yeah, I'd like that. Maybe show me some things." So we jammed. He came over to my house, and right away, like his level was like way above what I expected. He'd been playing guitar for 6 months, and he was like fully improvising and like had a great ear. And it turned out he had an incredible ear. He probably could have been a virtuoso musician if he had been doing this and wanted to do it. In the space of 2 hours, I watched him get so much better. He started playing everything I was playing and adding to it. It was mind blowing just watching this guy get better right before my very eyes. And at the end of it, I kind of grabbed him by his arm. I was like, Ollie, I'm gonna tell you seriously, man. Like, you're better at this than I am. You should be doing this. You could be doing this for a living. Like, you're so talented." And he's like, "Hey, yeah, thanks. Maybe." And he doesn't play anymore.
At
He
all.
just sort of like does whatever he's doing. He's a dad now. He's got a couple kids, and I heard he's building a yurt house on one of the islands out here. He's a total hippie guy, insane musician. Still good at skateboarding. But there's people like that all over the place. But yeah, Canada's got a cool scene. We got some real talented musicians in Victoria. I mean, there's just tons of really good musicians out here, and I think it's a little tricky for guys on the island to really make a go of it. You got that ferry, and the music industry in Canada is small, but you have a vast amount of space to get across. So, like being in the middle is advantageous for traveling for sure. Like, part of me wishes I moved back to Toronto and was doing it based out of there, because yeah, I wouldn't have to deal with the ferry, and the industry is mostly lives there. But yeah, there's talented dudes all over the place. My guitar player, for instance, he's from a little town called Antigonish, and that's in Nova Scotia. And
Okay.
I kept on hearing about this guy, uh, Pete McDonald, from a friend of mine who I met, was from Halifax. I met him. I was playing this fireman's ball. He was a fireman, and I was just playing solo. And at the end of the night, this guy came up. He's like, "Hey, man, that was really good. And you want to drink some moonshine and come back to the house? We're having an after party." I was like, "Oh yeah, for sure." And I liked this guy right away. Some people you just like them. You
You
meet them
just
and you're like,
click.
"You're
Yeah.
cool." So met this guy. Had a hilarious evening with him drinking moonshine, and he had me playing some more guitar by the end of the night, jam with these other folks. And I remember that night he was like, "You got to meet my buddy Pete. He's like you, but he's from the East Coast, from a small little town." And one day Pete came out, and I'll never forget. I walked into Alex's house, the fireman fella, and there was this guy sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, Jess, this is Pete, the guy I've been telling you about." "Oh, wow. Hey, Pete, I heard a lot about you." He's like, "Hey, Jess, likewise." So, anyways, I was like, "Sorry, don't mean to be rude, but I gotta go to the bathroom." So I roll into the bathroom there. I'm doing my business, and all of a sudden I hear this like Don Ross playing. I'm like, "Oh, weird. I wouldn't have picked Alex as like a Don Ross listening kind of." Do you know Don Ross?
No, I don't know Don Ross.
Oh, he's actually an East Coaster from Canada too. He's an incredible fingerstyle guitar player.
Huh.
He's world renowned actually, but in that genre of like peaceful finger picking awesomeness. And so I'm listening to this. I finish up my business. I go back outside, and I'm about to be like, "You guys like Don Ross?" And then I realized it was Pete playing it. Whoa, nice one, man. That's you're a talented dude. And now he's in the band. But he was like, he's a killer guitar player. Come from this little place on the other side of other side of Canada, and here I am on the West Coast. We kind of East Coast meet West Coast, and here we are playing in the same band, and it's pretty cool too because we're of similar abilities, so we like sort of push each other on stage. and it's been slowly rising both of our levels to greater heights because there's a little bit of competitiveness, and yeah, I mean, long story short, there's such talented people all over this planet, and it constantly blows my mind running into, yeah, folks you'd never heard of who are incredible.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, there's so many talented people everywhere now with the internet. You just see them, and you're like, "Whoa!" There's just so much incredible talent. But most definitely, Canada has a great share of them. I've had the great opportunity of talking with a lot of Canadian artists, and they're just you guys are just so cool. Yeah, for sure. And they rave a lot like kind of like you raving about Toronto and how there's just so much there. What is it about Toronto? Because I hear different things, but mostly good. That it's particularly with the music.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a melting pot of like communities, and it's like Canada doesn't have like that in general, like cultures from all over the world showing up in one place. But Toronto probably has more of that. Toronto and Montreal probably have more of that than anywhere. And so there's a lot of different influences mixing in there. And so, when you get that kind of creativity percolating in one spot, I don't know, it just breeds a scene. And so Toronto has a bit more of a scene, and you hear about it. So, like myself, I went there to go check it out, and I would have stayed there because I was finding my way. The only reason I left is because I was having it. I was having problems. There was a person who decided to help me out there, and it became a real problem. And for
Oh,
about a year, I was running away from that problem, and that person thought it was more than I thought it was. I thought it was a
right.
business relationship, and it turned out to be actually really scary. And my emails were getting my all my internet was hacked basically,
Oh
and
no. Oh no.
weird threatening letters getting sent everywhere to my friends and my family, and mostly my ex-girlfriend. It was horrible,
Oh,
and I didn't
stalker.
even, yeah,
Stalker.
it was crazy. I had a stalker, yeah. And so I was like, I gotta get out of here. And at the same time, my mom's mom, I mean, my grandmother looked like she was on death's door. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna leave here, let the the fire die down, and then I'm gonna come back. Well, what ended up happening is I went back home. My grandmother, she lived like another 12, 13 years, and or maybe not quite that much, maybe more like, yeah, no, it was around there. And but biggest thing, I met a girl and fell in love on the island, and that just changed everything, including my writing. And that's where Any Time of Night comes in. And I got on the radio out here, and that had never happened, and that was such an incredible boost. I mean, Spotify is awesome, and you take fire and come sort of viral, and TikTok and all these things. But I mean, for me, I have never experienced that, but I did get on the radio in Victoria, and my crowds went from like 20 people to now there's thousands of people come and watch me here.
That is
And it's funny
awesome.
because in Victoria, people's impressions of Jesse Roper and his band are like that, you know, sold out shows, lots of people, hype, but they don't necessarily see I'll fly to somewhere else the next day. Nobody knows me. And I'm playing for 5, 10, 30, 100 people, whatever. And that's also a very I'll never forget. I've played at a festival in Victoria, and like folks were stoked to see us. We played it. There was like 10,000 people in this field. It was
Nice.
awesome. And then the next day we played in Kamloops at the Blue Grotto for like, I mean, it started off as like 7 people in the crowd. I think it got better. People phoned their friends, and there ended up being like pretty raucous, like 35. But it was humbling, man. We went from like way up here to like, okay, we got this, man. Just play like there's 10,000. Just like keep with it. I had never had such a drastic drop though, but now I've done that lots. Even my last tour, we played for like 500 people who everybody knew the words up in Duncan on the island there. There probably would have been lots more if there could have fit more. That show sold out, and then we're on a plane to Annapolis or Newark, New Jersey, the next day. And we get to this this club in Annapolis, and it was like a sit down gig, and there was like, yeah, like 80 people. And it's just a completely different vibe, and friends who brought their friends and like maybe don't know the tunes, and the odd person who's like, "We've been waiting for so long for you to get here," and then lots of just have no clue. And yeah, it's just par for the course these days.
But a musician artist like you, do you find it fun winning over that new crowd that
I
doesn't
love it.
know you, and you're like, oh, you just wait. You
Yeah.
give me about an hour. This is, you're gonna know me.
It's true. I still have that cocky side of me. Like it's been humbled many times, but there's a part of me that's like, I'm gonna give it to you and you're gonna like it,
That is awesome. Awesome. Well, Jesse, it's been an honor and a privilege, man. I so much appreciate it. And I've learned so much, and the audience is going to learn so much from this as well. Tell us where we can find you online.
Oh, gee, well, jesseroper.ca is my website. I put all my stuff on there. And then, yeah, I mean, Jesse Roper Official on Instagram, Jesse Roper on Facebook. I got Jesse Roper Official on TikTok, although I have a hard time with TikTok. But anyway, I'm not so much of a social media guy, but I try to post up on my social media spots, Spotify, Jesse Roper, SoundCloud, and I try to be regular with all that stuff. But I like writing stories. I'm not so much of a video content guy. I'm like old as far as the industry. I got bags under my eyes. I didn't grow up with social media. So I like to, when I have something to say, go on there and post and write a little story of events. And I really enjoy doing that. So I try to like be current, but I'm not on there every day. I can't
You
do
can't.
that.
You can't live on there. I mean, it would mess with your creativity too, right? I mean,
Kind of does. I need time away. It still feels unnatural to me. It's like part of the job. Um, Although it's not to say I don't find enjoyment out of it. And sometimes when things blow up and get a bunch of likes, you're like, oh, they like me, But I like to just like remember that I like me first and just stay there most of the time. But yeah, that's where you find me. Jesse Roper, whatever. I should make this point though. Everywhere online, there's more and more scams happening. And if you're online and you're on my pages, make sure if you're talking to me, I'm responding, not Jesse Roper other page. I'm
Okay.
finding that there's all of a sudden a bunch of Jesse Roper accounts popping up and people are being fooled. They think they're talking to me. It's not. It's just like guys have figured out that there's a bunch of people going there and they're trying to make it like a terrible place. It drives me nuts. I just want to challenge these people to a fight to the death.
Yeah, like what's up? I mean, don't they get a life, right?
Yeah, drives me nuts. I got it though.
Man. Well, Jesse, it's been an honor and a privilege. And like I said, man, if you ever come down to California or shoot, next time you come up, even anywhere on the West Coast, Washington, I'll go up there, man, for sure. Check you out because it's well worth it, man. You're fantastic.
Right on. Well, thanks for having me on your show, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, man. Like I said, let's keep up. And, like I said, I love it when I discover a new artist and, you hear the first song, you're like, that's pretty damn good. And then you hear more and you're like, well, wait a minute. He's like, he keeps it going. So you're solid. And, I'd love it, man. I'm really discovering such great music with you. And, I just want to keep watching, keep listening, see what happens, man.
Right on. Well, I got some new stuff coming for you. It's going to be a big year.
I want to hear it. Jesse, man, I won't keep you, but hey, man, have fun in Germany, kick ass over there, and just do your thing, man.
I will.
All right, brother. Well, keep in touch, man.
Have a great rest of the day.
Hey, you too, man.
All right, see you, buddy.
Thank you.